link the tables. You know the relationship already, and now you want to link the table. Okay, ini contoh table yang saya dah create lah dalam satu database lah. I have inventory table, I have supplier table. How can I link these two tables together? I have to link these two tables together using foreign key. Primary key and foreign key concept. So in inventory table, the primary key is inventory ID. In supplier table, the primary key is the supplier ID. If I want to link these two tables together, I have to bring the supplier ID to become the foreign key in the inventory table. And inventory ID will become the foreign key in the supplier table. Okay, so this is the concepts of foreign key, primary key. If there's no foreign key, two tables cannot be linked together. So kalau saya gunakan Asad, saya boleh bring terus je. Okay, inventory to supply table. From inventory ID, I want to relate to the supplier table, and the primary key in the supplier table is the supplier ID. Okay, so this is the relationship that I create. Otherwise, if tak nampak lah foreign key tu di sini, tapi sebenarnya dia apa kita kata, dia linked by the foreign key and primary key relationships. Enforced retention. This one, if I put enforced retention integrity, it will be one-to-one relationship. Yeah. Okay. Kalau saya tunjuk di sini lah. Right. Sekejap. I go to Excel now. Excel. I can also create the what we call it, the table in Excel. Right. Ini adalah initial table. I have inventory table, I have supplier table. Okay, so inventory table, I have several attributes: inventory ID, inventory name, inventory quantity, and all of these attributes, I have to find out which one is unique, and I have to appoint that unique characteristic of unique attributes as a primary key. So in my case, for the inventory table, I dedicate inventory ID as the primary key, and the supplier table, supplier ID as the primary key, the unique identification. So when I want to link these two tables, the primary key of inventory table should be the foreign key in the supplier table. And if there's no primary foreign key, then they shouldn't. We cannot create the linkage between, or the relationship between these two tables. So I'm linking inventory, the foreign key here, then I create the relationship. Okay. On the other hand, same thing, supplier ID as a primary key and supplier table will become the foreign key in the inventory table. Okay, let's say here I have many-to-many relationship. Many-to-many relationship. Okay. One supplier can supply many inventory. One supplier can supply inventory A, B, C, D. And then one inventory, each inventory A can be supplied by many suppliers. Inventory A can be supplied by supplier A, supplier 1, supplier 2, supplier 3, supplier 4. If I cannot get the item from supplier 2, I can call supplier 3 to send me the item. So in this case, sometimes when inventory arrives, you cannot identify who are the suppliers. We know that this inventory can be supplied by many suppliers, but who supplied this inventory this time? And we can identify that. So there's a data redundancy. So what we have to do in many-to-many relationship, we have to remove the many-to-many relationship by creating the associative entity, the middle entity or the middle table. How? Okay, we create one new table. Yeah, we create one new table in the middle here, known as inventory supplier table. And we dedicate the primary key. We assign the primary key from both table as the primary key in the new table. And inventory ID as a primary key, supplier ID as a primary key. Yeah. And then we want to add probably the date when the supply was sent. Okay. So now the relationship will become in between. Okay. Inventory ID. Okay. And supplier ID. Okay, now it's normalizing, normalizing the relationship. So it becomes that, yes, inventory can be supplied by many, one inventory can be supplied by many supplier, but one particular inventory supply is specifically for one inventory. Okay. You refer to that particular inventory supplier code, you know this is inventory ID and this is the supplier ID. Okay. Right. So you remove the appearance of many relationship. It becomes one to many relationship. Okay. This is how we create associative entity or associative table to remove redundancy in the database report. Any feedback? Where are all the people? Am I talking to myself? Any feedback from the class? If you have any questions, you are lost, you can't follow, please ask me question now. Semua dah hilang ke ni? Semua dah tidur? Can I have some feedback? Are you following? Are you following others? Izzat mana Izzat? Izzat?
Yes, betul. So far okay tu. Cuma kena try buat nanti.
Yes, you kena try buat lah Right? You. Okay. Right. This is the example how you create the ERD lah. If you have more tables, more entity, then you have to expand the tables and include more entity. Right. Okay, I'll stop sharing this. Okay, now that's on how to prepare ERD. Saya dah tunjukkan contoh menggunakan Excel dan juga Access. Okay. Kalau you lihat dalam I have share with you, I have upload one questions, past semester questions on on design, system design, specifically on the ERD, ERD design and also the interface design. I have uploaded a question from the past or previous semester. Okay, so we have a look at how the questions could be. Macam mana pun saya nak you at this time not focusing on exams saja lah, but you have to understand how to prepare ERD, what's the purpose of ERD, what are the concepts behind ERD. Okay, right now I will share with you the examples of questions. Example of questions, sekejap You boleh tengok juga dalam OL OL ada, saya dah share tadi. Okay, I'll share with you this one. Okay. System design on database model and user interface. Interface design. Okay, this is the narrative given. So, of course, when you need to prepare ERD, here requirement is to identify attributes for each entity, and then you have to prepare the ERD. ERD. ERD together with associative entity, if any. Right. So in this case, you are given the narrative describing about the system. So it's about Sorella Tarella Fashion Boutique. Yeah. And they are now preparing, or they are now offering online shopping platform for the customer, where customer can place the order online from their website. So they need to have a database to record the customer query. Okay, so these are the description of the system. Okay, based on this description, you can identify what are the entity relevant for the system and this entity that you're interested to keep their data in the sales database. Yeah. So in this one, in this description, says that they hire delivery workers. Yeah. So these delivery workers will be responsible to deliver products